Welcome back to the channel. If you've been anywhere near crypto lately, you've probably heard the growing hype around Monad. Everyone is talking about the upcoming mainnet launch. Everyone is waiting for the big moment when the network finally goes live. But here's the thing, most investors are completely missing. While everyone is busy chasing the mainnet hype, the real opportunity is already forming inside the ecosystem right now. Right now, in March 2026, there are early projects being built on Monad that are quietly preparing for massive growth. And because most retail investors are still focused on major coins and trending narratives, these projects are still massively undervalued. So, today we're going to do something different. Instead of chasing green candles and hype cycles, we're going to map the Monad ecosystem. We'll break down. This is not financial advice. Please do your own research before making any decision. Why parallelized execution could reshape the blockchain industry, how to read the ecosystem heat map before the mainnet surge, and how to identify the undervalued dApps that could dominate this ecosystem. Because if history has taught us anything in crypto, it's that the biggest gains rarely happen after the hype begins. They happen before the crowd even notices. To understand why Monad is getting so much attention, we first need to talk about a fundamental limitation in most blockchains today. Traditional blockchains process transactions sequentially. That means transactions are handled one after another. This design keeps networks secure and predictable, but it also creates a massive bottleneck. As more users join the network, congestion builds, transaction fees rise, and performance begins to suffer. We've seen this problem many times before. Even powerful networks like Ethereum have struggled with scalability when demand spikes. Monad is trying to solve this problem in a completely different way. Instead of processing transactions sequentially, Monad uses parallelized execution. That means multiple transactions can be processed simultaneously. Think of it like this. Instead of a single checkout line at a store, you suddenly open dozens of checkout counters at the same time. The result? Massively increased throughput. The Monad architecture is designed to reach around 10,000 transactions per second, while still remaining compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine. That combination is extremely important because it means developers can build high-performance applications without abandoning the Ethereum ecosystem. And this technical leap is exactly why so many developers are already preparing projects for the Monad ecosystem. When infrastructure improves, innovation follows. And when innovation accelerates, capital flows quickly behind it. Right now, we are in what many analysts call the pre-mainnet phase. Historically, this phase has been one of the most profitable windows in crypto. We saw this with multiple ecosystems. When Solana was still early, very few people paid attention to the projects building on it. But once the ecosystem started expanding, liquidity rushed into the network almost overnight. The same thing happened with Avalanche and several other high-performance chains. Early builders became market leaders. Late investors were left chasing pumps. The Monad ecosystem may now be approaching a similar moment. Developers are already experimenting with high-throughput applications. Testnets are running, infrastructure is forming, but retail investors haven't fully arrived yet. That's exactly the kind of environment where asymmetric opportunities appear. So how do you actually identify the strongest projects in an ecosystem that is still developing? This is where the concept of an ecosystem heat map becomes useful. A heat map essentially tracks which areas of the ecosystem are gaining the most momentum. There are three metrics that matter most when building this kind of map. First is total value locked, often referred to as TVL. TVL measures how much capital users have deposited into a protocol. If TVL is rising rapidly, it usually means users trust the platform and are actively using it. The second metric is developer activity. Projects with strong developer communities often move faster, innovate more, and adapt better when market conditions change. And the third metric is social momentum. In crypto, narratives can drive massive liquidity flows. If developers are building and communities are growing at the same time, that's usually a strong signal. When we combine these metrics, patterns start to appear. Right now, inside the Monad ecosystem, several sectors are already attracting early attention. One of the most important sectors is high-frequency decentralized exchanges. Traditional decentralized exchanges often struggle with slow execution speeds. But on a high-throughput chain like Monad, DEX platforms can support extremely fast trading. This opens the door to entirely new financial products. Another sector gaining traction is liquid staking infrastructure. As more networks adopt staking models, liquid staking protocols allow users to earn rewards while still maintaining liquidity. And finally, infrastructure projects such as cross-chain bridges and data indexing platforms are quietly building the backbone of the ecosystem. These projects rarely get headlines early on, but they often become some of the most valuable protocols later. Now comes the most important question. How do you identify the projects that are still undervalued? One useful framework is comparing market valuation versus potential utility. In simple terms, if a project could become essential infrastructure for a 10,000 TPS blockchain, but its current market value assumes almost no adoption, that's a potential disconnect. And these disconnects are where opportunity lives. Another important factor is technical readiness. Projects that have already completed security audits, launched working testnets, and built functional prototypes are usually far ahead of the average early-stage protocol. Yet many of these projects remain invisible to retail investors. This creates what some analysts call liquidity lag. Liquidity lag happens when technology progresses faster than market awareness. Developers are shipping new features, protocols are improving, but the market hasn't noticed yet. Eventually, that gap tends to close, and when it does, price discovery can happen extremely fast. Another reason the Monad ecosystem is attracting attention is its focus on hardware optimization. Most blockchains rely heavily on software-level improvements. Monad takes a different approach. The network architecture is designed to fully leverage modern hardware capabilities. This includes optimized state databases and efficient memory management. Why does this matter? Because hardware efficiency directly affects performance. If a blockchain can process transactions faster while maintaining low latency, it becomes much more attractive for developers building complex applications. For example, decentralized exchanges require fast order matching. Gaming platforms require real-time interactions, and financial protocols need near-instant settlement. With sub-second finality and high throughput, Monad opens the door for applications that were previously difficult to run on traditional blockchains. Another important advantage is for Monad-native dApps. Protocols built specifically for Monad's architecture will likely perform far better than applications simply ported over from Ethereum. That performance advantage could eventually translate into higher user adoption and stronger revenue models. So, what happens when the mainnet finally launches? Typically, ecosystem expansion happens in phases. The first phase is developer migration. More builders start experimenting with the network as infrastructure becomes stable. The second phase is liquidity migration. Capital begins moving into early protocols as users test new platforms. And the third phase is narrative expansion. Media coverage increases, social media discussions explode, and retail investors finally start paying attention. By the time this third phase begins, many of the biggest gains have already occurred. That's why early positioning can be so powerful. But it's also important to remember that early-stage ecosystems come with higher volatility and higher risk. Smart investors focus on risk management. Instead of betting everything on one project, they diversify across several promising protocols. They monitor development progress, they track liquidity flows, and they stay alert for key signals that a project is moving from undervalued experiment to ecosystem leader. Those signals might include rapid TVL growth, new exchange listings, or partnerships with major infrastructure providers. When multiple signals align at the same time, momentum can build extremely quickly. The crypto market moves in cycles. Every cycle introduces new technologies, new ecosystems, and new opportunities. Right now, the rise of high-performance blockchains is creating a new battlefield for developers and investors, and the Monad ecosystem may become one of the most important arenas in that battle. With parallelized execution, hardware optimization, and the potential for massive throughput, the infrastructure is clearly designed for the next generation of decentralized applications. But infrastructure alone doesn't create value. Ecosystems create value, and ecosystems are built by the developers, protocols, and communities that grow around the network. That's why mapping the ecosystem early can be so powerful. Because when you look beyond the hype and follow the actual development activity, you often find opportunities hiding in plain sight. The mainnet surge will eventually arrive, liquidity will rotate, narratives will form, and some of today's unknown projects may become tomorrow's dominant protocols. The real question is whether investors will discover them before the crowd does, or only after the opportunity has already passed. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe for more daily crypto insights. Catch you in the next one. Stay crypto smart.